Before Jesus ever called Lazarus out of the tomb, before death was reversed and the impossible unfolded, something happened that most people overlook. He prayed. But what matters is not just that he prayed, it's how he prayed. The internal posture, the unseen alignment, the moment that came before the miracle. That part has largely disappeared from modern Christianity, not because it was intentionally hidden, but because it requires something rarely taught anymore, a method, not just belief. If you've ever felt like your prayers vanish into silence, like your words rise upward but never seem to return with power, you're not broken and you're not alone. Most people were taught that prayer is asking, requesting, pleading, hoping that God might respond, if the timing is right, if it's His will, if your faith measures up. And when nothing happens, the explanation is almost always the same. God said no, your faith wasn't strong enough, or the answer is hidden somewhere beyond your understanding. But here's the truth that almost no one explains. That is not how Jesus prayed. When Jesus stood in front of Lazarus' tomb, He didn't beg God to act. He didn't negotiate. He didn't ask for permission. According to the Gospel of John, Jesus lifted His eyes and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me." Pause there. Not will hear, not might hear. Have heard, past tense. He gave thanks for something that had not yet manifested, because in His awareness, it was already done. That is not a prayer of request, that is a prayer of alignment. And when you look closely, you'll see this same pattern repeated again and again throughout the Gospels. Before the paralytic was healed, Scripture says Jesus saw their faith and then He spoke. But between seeing and speaking, something occurred internally that the text doesn't label. Before feeding the 5,000, Jesus looked up, not to ask, but to orient Himself. Before walking on water, He withdrew to the mountain alone. Before healing the woman who reached for His garment, power was already moving through Him. He didn't decide to release it, He was already positioned for it to flow. This sequence appears repeatedly: withdrawal, solitude, an interior shift, then power. Which leads to a question very few people ever ask. If Jesus gave clear instruction on prayer, why does modern Christianity treat it as a mystery instead of a method? In Matthew 6, Jesus says something that most people spend their entire lives misunderstanding. When you pray, He says, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is in secret. Most interpretations stop at the surface. Find a quiet place, avoid being seen, don't be performative. And while that's partially true, it misses the depth of what Jesus was actually teaching. The word He used for room is tameion. It does not mean a bedroom or a storage space. It means an inner chamber, a treasury, a concealed place within. Jesus wasn't talking about geography. He was giving a map. He was pointing inward. When you pray, go into the part of you that exists beyond thought, beyond identity, beyond fear, beyond the constant noise of the mind. Enter the inner room. And then He adds something crucial. Close the door. Not try to focus, not manage distractions. Close it, seal it. Shut out the external senses, quiet the mental chatter. Step away from the version of yourself that is anxious, striving, and asking from lack. Because the Father is not distant. He is not waiting somewhere outside for you to speak loudly enough. He is encountered within. The Father is encountered in secret, within the inner room most people never reach, not because it is forbidden, but because they were never taught that it exists. And Jesus returned to that place every single time before power was released. This is not theory, it is a pattern. Every healing, every moment where the unseen broke into the visible, every instance where reality shifted, the order was always the same. Inward first, stillness, alignment, then power. But here is where things went off course. You were never shown how to go inward. You were taught to close your eyes and begin speaking, to form thoughts about God, to imagine Him listening from somewhere outside you, to hope your words reached Him. But thinking about God is not the same as entering the place where God is encountered, and that distinction matters more than most people realize. The absence of power was not because God stopped responding, it was because the practice, the actual method of entering the inner room and sealing the door, slowly disappeared. As Christianity moved from small contemplative communities into large institutional structures, something essential was lost. Silence cannot be mass-produced. Inner formation cannot be standardized. And you cannot guide others into a depth you have never personally entered. So the instruction remained written, but the how faded.
What survived were outward forms. Rituals that could be repeated, prayers that could be memorized, structures that required no interior transformation. The language endured, the method vanished. And this leads to a truth that is almost entirely missing from modern Christian teaching. Prayer is not about persuading God, it is about coherence. Let that settle. Prayer, as Jesus practiced it, was never about convincing heaven to act. It was about entering a state of unity where separation dissolves, where your will and the Father's will are no longer negotiating, they are no longer opposed, they are one. From that place there is no distance, no delay, no division, only union. And when you speak from union, you are not attempting to change reality. You are acknowledging what is already established at its source. This is why Jesus spoke the way He did at Lazarus' tomb. This is why gratitude came before the miracle. Because from within the inner room, time does not operate the way we experience it externally. Cause precedes effect. What has not yet appeared physically is already complete at its origin. So you do not speak from lack. You do not speak from hope. You do not speak from anxiety. You speak from agreement, from alignment, from the place where the Father's intention and your intention are no longer separate. Jesus Himself explained this in John's Gospel when He said, "The words I speak are not spoken on my own authority. The Father who dwells within me is doing the work." Notice what He is saying. He does not claim personal power. He does not position Himself as the source. He identifies Himself as the channel. Not for Him, not to Him, through Him. Jesus became the meeting place between heaven and earth, the point of contact where the invisible expressed itself in the visible. And He did not access that by effort or ego. He accessed it by entering the inner room and closing the door to everything that was not God. Only from that place does power move. Because if you attempt to speak from the surface self, from personality, from fear, from the divided mind, nothing flows. Not because God withholds, but because alignment has not yet occurred. As long as you remain outside the door, you are still operating from separation, from effort, from need, from the place that believes something is missing. And the outer world does not respond to separation, it responds to source. But source is not accessed through striving. It is accessed by going where Jesus went, inward, behind the door, into the silence that exists before thought, before identity, before desire, before the noise of the mind that is always asking for something. This is why Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness before his ministry began. Not to impress God, not to earn authority, but to remember. This is why he went up the mountain alone before choosing the 12. Why he withdrew repeatedly into solitary places. Why he stepped away even when crowds were pressing in, desperate for his attention. He was not resting, he was not escaping, he was realigning. Each time he returned to the inner room. Each time he closed the door. Each time he remembered who he was beneath the human personality. And every time he did, he returned with power. Now, here is what I can give you. Not the full method, because the inner room does not open through explanation. It opens only for those willing to remain at the threshold. But I can give you the entry point, the foundation, the one thing without which nothing else works. If you want to go where Jesus went, you must stop doing what you have been taught to do. Stop speaking to God only in your thoughts. Stop narrating. Stop asking. Stop imagining him somewhere far away, listening from a distance. Instead, do this. Sit somewhere you will not be interrupted. Be still. Close your eyes. And instead of beginning to pray, do not speak. Do not form words. Do not launch into requests. Just breathe. Not a technique, not controlled breathing. Simply notice the breath as it moves in, and notice it as it moves out. And with every exhale, consciously release one layer of noise. Release the thought of what comes later. Release the conversation from earlier. Release the version of yourself that is worried about tomorrow or replaying yesterday. Just breathe. As you do, begin to sense something subtle, a stillness behind your thoughts, a quiet beneath the mental chatter, a silence that has always been there, but rarely noticed. Do not expect a voice. Do not look for images. Do not wait for something dramatic. This place announces itself quietly. And if you stay, if you resist the urge to start talking, to start asking, to perform the kind of prayer you were taught, you may begin to sense a presence, not external, not separate, closer than your breath, closer than your heartbeat. This is the edge of the inner room. And when you notice it, do not rush forward. Do not try to make something happen. Do not begin listing needs or requests. Just remain. Even if it feels like nothing is happening, even if the mind insists you are doing it wrong, even if impatience rises, stay, because the door does not open by effort. It opens by recognition, and recognition takes time. You might sit for 5 minutes and feel nothing. You might sit for 10 and doubt yourself, but you are not failing. You are learning stillness. You are learning how to close the door. You are learning how to stop speaking long enough to listen. You are learning what it feels like to not be the voice in your head, to not be the one who is afraid, to not be the one who needs something fixed, provided, or changed. You are learning to rest in the presence that has always been there, waiting for you to notice. This is the foundation. Without this, nothing else works. You can memorize every prayer. You can study every scripture. You can repeat every ritual ever taught. But without entering the inner room, there is no alignment. And without alignment, power does not move.
You can fast, you can worship, you can serve tirelessly. But if you never learn to enter the inner room, if you never learn how to close the door and remain still, you will always be praying from the outside. And the outside has no authority. Now here is where the shift begins. Once the foundation is established, once you have learned to recognize the presence within the inner room, there is a second movement that Jesus consistently made. Not words, not requests, a shift in awareness. This is the moment where alignment becomes authority. It is the difference between praying to the Father and praying from the Father. When Jesus said, "The Father and I are one," he was not making an abstract theological statement. He was describing a lived state of being. The state he entered before every miracle. A place where the boundary between self and source dissolved. Where my will and your will were no longer separate ideas being negotiated. They were the same movement. From that place of union, Jesus did not ask for miracles. He recognized them. He perceived what was already true in the unseen and gave it expression in the seen. This is why he could speak to the paralytic and say, "Rise and walk," with complete authority. Why he could command the storm to be still. Why he could call Lazarus out of the tomb. He was not hoping God would intervene. He was acting from the place where he and God were not divided.
This is what happens when you learn to remain in the inner room. When you close the door and rest in that presence long enough, consistently enough, something fundamental shifts. You stop experiencing yourself as a separate being asking God for help, and you begin to experience yourself as the place where God's will is expressed. Not because you are special, not because you have attained some elevated spiritual rank, but because you have stepped out of the way. The personality, the ego, the part of you that is constantly afraid, wanting, striving, and needing, that is what obstructs the flow. And when you enter the inner room and close the door, you temporarily set that version of yourself aside. You remove the obstruction. What has always been present is finally able to move through you without resistance. Jesus called this the kingdom of heaven. Not a destination after death, not a future reward, a state of awareness entered while still alive. And he was explicit. It is within you. It is accessed inwardly in the inner room. Now, this must be said clearly. This is not instant. You will not practice this once and wake up the next morning operating with effortless authority. The inner room opens gradually. It requires patience, consistency, a willingness to sit in what feels like nothingness while your nervous system learns to recognize a frequency it has long ignored. But it does open, and when it does, prayer stops being something you do toward God and becomes something you do from God. Your words carry weight. Your intentions align with a greater intelligence, and reality begins to respond differently. Not because you are forcing change, but because you are no longer operating from separation. You are operating from source. This is what the mystics understood, what the desert fathers practiced, what contemplative Christians have preserved in monasteries and hermitages for centuries, while the wider church gradually forgot how to teach it. But this wisdom was never meant to be hidden. It was never meant for a select few. It was meant for anyone willing to become still, to go inward and to learn.
This path is open to anyone willing to stop speaking long enough to listen, anyone willing to turn inward and discover what has been waiting there all along. So here is the invitation. Do not let this remain an idea. Do not let it become just another video you watched and moved past. Try it. Tonight, tomorrow morning, any moment when you can give yourself 10 uninterrupted minutes. Sit, close your eyes, breathe. Let the noise fall away. Release the constant movement of thought, and gently feel for the stillness that exists beneath it all. When you sense it, when you brush against that quiet presence, even briefly, stay there. Do not ask. Do not try to make something happen. Do not turn it into another task. Just remain. Learn the feeling of it. Familiarize yourself with it. Train yourself to recognize that space. Because once you learn how to enter the inner room, once you have closed the door even a single time, you will always know the way back. And the more you return, the more natural it becomes, until one day something shifts. You realize you are no longer visiting, you are abiding. Prayer is no longer something you do, it becomes the state from which you live. This is what Jesus meant when he said, "The kingdom of heaven is at hand," not arriving someday, not waiting somewhere else, present, immediate, within you. If something in you recognized the truth of what we explored here, if this stirred something deeper than thought, support this work.
Subscribe. Share this with someone who has been searching for a deeper way to pray. Leave a like if this offered you something real. Because the more people who learn to enter the inner room, the more people who learn to close the door and align with Source, the more the world itself begins to change. Now go, be still, and discover what has been waiting for you in the silence.